It's just February, but I kind of feel like this is going to be the biggest figure news in all of 2025. McFarlane Toys is out. Mattel is back as a license holder of DC figures. Now, what does this mean going forward for the rest of the year? How many more Batman figures is McFarlane Toys going to deliver? Is he going to finish some of those teams that he started? Is he just going to give up on the hopes of doing more Legion figures? Are we going to see Black Canaries, Zatanna, Vixen, Hawk Woman, Hawk Girl? We're going to get a complete Justice Society before it's all wrapped up and done. And for Mattel, will they finally deliver a line of DC figures that matches up to the quality of Hasbro's Marvel Legend? There's a ton of questions. Not going to be able to answer all of them. Let's talk about it right now. What's up, everybody? It's Jeffrey Lyles welcoming you to another edition of Lyles Figure Files. It was a crazy day today, a big one in terms of figure news, and it all started with this revelation from Queenie Wong. Mattel wins back the lucrative rights to make DC themed action figures, other toys. Now, when you think of DC Mattel figures, they've got this great line of DC classics. What figure do we get? What picture do we get? This boring one. I mean, no offense to Daniel Acker from Bloomberg via Getty Images, but there were so many more exciting pictures to go with. I don't know where we got that. Anyway, so here's the big news. Batman and Superman and everybody in between are coming back to Mattel starting in the second half of 2026. My first question, of course, is does this mean we're going to continue seeing more McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures from, say, January, February, March, maybe the first quarter of 2026? Or is it a cold stop with December 31st? And what are we going to do to scratch that DC figure itch in between? Or we're just going to like, where are we going to go? Is Mayfex going to deliver some DC comic book figures? Because, I mean, there's a Superman movie coming. There's a Supergirl movie coming, too. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of buzz, excitement going around with DC right now. And kind of seems like a weird time to transition from one company to the other. But Mattel, they've got the big pockets. They can go and grab this thing. And they did. PJ Lewis, Mattel's senior vice president and global head of action figures and Fisher Price Entertainment, said, "It's a huge deal. You're dealing with some of the greatest superheroes and some of the best action figure potential in the industry. And we're incredibly excited by that." Well, I think a lot of figure collectors are excited by this news too. I almost can hear some of you chatters going like the emperor has fallen. Coruscant is popping bottles. Champagne is spraying everywhere. The reign of McFarlane DC figures is finally over. And speaking of someone, as you can see here, who's gotten a pretty solid collection of McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse figures, this is just a few of them. I'm a little bit disappointed about this news because I think what McFarlane was doing was really pushing the limits of what he could do with action figures. Now, granted, this line was not perfect by any way. You can see Power Girl standing so far, head and shoulders above Superman. Her scaling's a problem, but he was starting to do some things we had been clamoring for Hasbro, Mattel, when they had the license originally, to do with their figures, soft good capes. He was, we were saying, hey, we want more alternate head sculpts. And McFarlane Toys said, how about swappable face plates? And in Guy Gardner's case, we'll even throw in swappable hair. That was pretty innovative, very creative, and it wasn't resulting in higher price point figures. It wasn't like, all right, here, face plates, we're going to raise the price of these figures to $40. I mean, by and large, they stay within that $22.99 to $29.99 price point. When he started, they were $19.99 for a much longer time when all these other companies were shooting their figure prices up to $24.99. So they were definitely a better deal price-wise. I mean, and there's some of these figures I'm really thrilled to get. I never got around to doing a video on, hey, here are all the McFarlane Toys figures we got that Mattel never did. Now Mattel can go, hey, here's some more figures that McFarlane Toys never got to. And I'm a little bummed out because that was really, it felt like McFarlane was really continuing to evolve what he was doing. We had the Build-A-Figure, Collect to Connect, whatever you want to call them. And those figures are really fun and really cool. Yeah, the prices were raised, but it made sense. He was giving us cool stuff like the JLA from Morrison, a Blue Beetle, Kyle Rayner in his actual original comic book outfit. Mattel still didn't deliver that to us. I have my DC Direct figure standing in with my Mattel DC Classics on that front. And I just felt like he was really taking some fun chances. There were a ton of figures that Mattel had had every opportunity to create his figures, and they just never did. So I was really interested to see where else McFarlane was going to go, and there's still some teams that he could complete. The Justice League, I think, has to be the priority. JLA, the Morrison Porter era, could get completed. I mean, because of the way he releases figures, they should be able to get more out to us before the end of the year. And again, I don't know. Will he continue on a little bit into 2026 since it's not until June, July when Mattel gets them probably out to us on the shelves? That's pretty exciting, though, thinking what they could do. And one thing for sure that's on the table that is definitely at the forefront of my mind, what is Mattel going to do with DC figures? Now, we've seen all the outrage when McFarlane debuted the 7-inch scale, and people are like, no, this isn't going to fit in with my Marvel Legends. Quick news flash, those figures were never going to fit in aesthetically with your Marvel Legends in the first place. I know people just hated McFarlane's figures. Anyway, so they were 7 inches, they were 6 inches, they were going to be McFarlane detractors. But Mattel has a really unique opportunity here because, PJ Lewis said it here. He said, hey, listen, you're dealing with some of the greatest superheroes and some of the best action figure potential in the industry. And I think they have that means of which to finally match up to that potential. DC is the other great comic book license. Hasbro is rolling, doing their thing with Marvel Legends. 20 years in the game plus, not just from Hasbro. Toy Biz contributed a good amount in those early days, but we're 20 years into Marvel Legends. What Mattel needs to do is establish a line, the equivalent to Marvel Legends, where we're excited about buying these figures and going, hey, it turns out we don't need Hasbro to do DC figures. We just need a Mattel to get the license back. Now, Mattel has had an opportunity when they were on the dying days of the brand. They were like, you know what? Maybe it is time for us to improve, enhance our figures just a little bit. And so they delivered a DC multiverse line, ironically entitled. And this wave of figures were pretty good. Batwoman, Jessica Cruz, Superman from DC Rebirth, Two-Face, Martian Manhunter from Supergirl, and a Collect to Connect Clayface, which is really awesome. My default Clayface. It's a great figure. They gave us Vixen, finally. We got a cool Wonder Woman, and then we got Kyle Rayner in his original comic book outfit. That was cool. Got a decent Lobo, Kingdom Come Superman, Batman, Beyond. And then we got Teen Titans. They showed off more figures, and I think if we had gotten those wave of figures, they would have been even better. We got Stargirl, got Nightwing, Wally West, and his not Kid Flash, but Flash attire. And they were delivering really fun figures like that Alfred figure. We got Katana finally, a Red Hood that's okay. Tim Drake Robin, Killer Croc. So they were delivering some figures that were like, hey, these aren't quite Marvel Legend quality, but good job. Keep working at it. And I feel like that was a positive step in the right direction. And of course, in the 6 years since Mattel has been doing DC figures, McFarlane has in a lot of ways evolved what we could expect from our DC figures. And Hasbro has done the same thing with Marvel Legends, where, yeah, they can't do DC Classics version 2.0 and expect collectors to be like, oh, this is amazing. This is awesome. Granted, I have a bunch of DC Classics figures, so maybe they cranked out some figures on that front in that format as a supplemental DC line. I would be really excited, but what I really want to see is them take the next level, the next step. And there is a way they could do this without having to do a whole lot of work. And my suggestion, for whatever it's worth, is hit David Vonner back up and go, hey, David, let's talk about these Batman figures you did. I mean, check these figures out. This is what Vonner showed on his Facebook page, and you can see these look every bit as good as a Marvel Legends figure. Granted, when he did these to Mattel. This was a few years back, so no butterfly shoulders. You'd gotta assume they would include that going forward with their figures in 2026. But this is a really good start. Like this should be the baseline of what Mattel DC figures should look like. So of course there's room for more articulation improvements. Maybe we get something different, not so much with this ab joint, but like an ab crunch twisting deal where we can have it rotating a little bit from side to side. That would be cool. I mean, of course, we're going to see several dozen Batman variants, but this is kind of what I would want to see them do. Like, hey, let's not mess around. Let's not go, hey, let's reinvent everything from the ground up. David Vonner's giving them the foundation. Let's hit him up. Go, hey, David, would you love so much to revitalize our DC equivalent to Marvel Legends? And here's some more images of what he was showing. These look good. And we can get these in figure form. I mean, we got a Bruce Wayne head sculpt, a little the cowl lowered. So when you put the Bruce Wayne head sculpt there, you've got that going too. You've got all kinds of fun accessories. This is what DC Classics didn't really have. I mean, DC Classics was great for its time period, but it got really outdated really fast when Marvel Legends from Hasbro started picking up steam. And so I think this David Vonner line could be the right step in the right direction. For me, I'm like, gosh, how many times am I going to buy this Batman figure with the Nightfall? And I know it's not the Nightfall look, but this is just what it's been called so many times. This signature 1970s Batman from so many different lines. I'm starting to think now, what did I have? Of course, had superpowers, had the Mego version. I had, geez, what else? DC Direct when they were starting to make their figures with articulation. Woo! Then we had DC Classics. Then DC Direct did some more with DC Icons. Then we had DC Essentials. Really fun, really good. McFarlane started showing up. And Mayfex, of course. So there's a ton of Batman figures. That's kind of the curse of being a DC collector. You're never going to get one that just stands the test of time. You're going to get a line if you're really lucky that goes 5 years, that touches a lot of corners of the universe. And then you're going to start all over, maybe with another company doing it. And they're totally different scale, they're totally different view. And of course, a lot of cases they have to match what's going on in the comic book. So say you're a fan of DC in the 90s or DC in the 80s or Kevin Maguire version of JLI, you might have to wait a really long time before your turn from your favorites get made into figures. And that's why I still don't understand why people are like, we need Hasbro to lose the Marvel Legends license. They don't understand, they don't really appreciate the benefit of having one company do a line of figures for years and years and decades. I mean, if you're a DC collector, it's like, you gotta start all over again. People are already going, I'm gonna start selling my McFarlane figures online. I'm not doing that. Much like I've got DC Direct figures from Icons, the regular DC Direct line, I'm just gonna have multiple DC figure lines. And it all, of course, depends on what Mattel's DC figures actually look like. Because if they're terrible, that's gonna be the worst. But I'm a little bit sad to see McFarlane Toys is going to be wrapping it up and not producing any more DC figures by the time 2026 rolls around. I am curious to see what else he can get done in this time period, though, because there's rumors of getting more JSA figures. I'm really excited about that. And if he can get some more figures, the quality of that Green Lantern, that Aquaman, that Nightfall Batman on my shelf, the Power Girl, even though she's way too tall. I mean, in Penguin, Riddler, Joker, he's done some really great figures. And I feel like people didn't give him enough credit. McFarlane Toys, that whole crew, credit for what they were doing just because they didn't like the scale. But I think things will change up. And of course, Mattel's not going to do an 8-inch or 7-inch. They probably got to understand. And if you're going to go and do this license, it's 6 inches or nothing at all. So we'll see what they do. And that's it for now. Stay tuned for the live where I get to talk to all of you with your thoughts on this, the celebration for those of you rooting for the demise of McFarlane Toys and their DC license, for those of you curious to see what they're going to do next. So for now, thank you so much for watching. This episode of Lyle's Figure Files has been filed.